So I guess so now you're at the point you're in grad school and you're getting your degree. You talked about being bit by the like the business that bug. Can you tell me about like the first company that you start? Like and how old were you around that time?
So I started my first, I think I formed my first LLC just so people could pay me, with a 1099 basis. I was 22, 23 years old, maybe 21. No, I was pretty young. I was still in grad school. I was 20 or 21 years old when I started that out. And, I was doing contract market research. No one's going to pay you to consult when you're still sitting in grad school
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
look like you're 12. Nobody wants to pay that guy. I was wearing a suit that was too big for me to show up because that's what they tell you to do in the career center. They're like, oh, wear your best suit. So I'm running out to Goodwill trying to find a jacket that fits. And that was before thrift shops were cool. That was before thrifting was the style. So I looked ridiculous. Uh, walking in there and for cross country, everybody likes spring shorts, Duke Prefontaine. So I still had a mustache, long hair, and I mean it just looked ridiculous. I looked like I was straight out of the '80s. Got was part of the Lionel Richie fan club. So, it was like, yeah, I was young. I went to the county courthouse right in the Calder Plaza, right downtown GR. Took my $10, proudest moment of my life. They stamped that paperwork for me and like, congratulations. I was like, sweet. So I'm rich now? Like, what do I do?
yeah, 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 yeah.
And then, yeah, I went over to my bank and I gave them all the paperwork, opened up a bank account, got that first consulting check. I think it was like $27 or some odd. It was like a very specific amount. And, yeah, and I was so pumped to open up that account, and then I realized that to have a business checking account, I had to pay $12 a month of fees if I didn't have more than, like, 5 grand in there or something, so 50% of my revenue went out the door just in banking fees. Hard lessons that you don't learn in the classroom, right?
Yeah,
It's like, no one's gonna sit there and tell you, you open up your first bank account and, it's gone. It's like South
right,
Park, you're talking about investments in the market, and then it's like, "Yeah, we're gonna put it here, and it's gone."
right.
And you're like, "Whoa, really? I'm broke again?" Like, ah. That's kinda what happened, and I took that business and I was able to scale it even after grad school, and then I started working on doctoral studies and I started adjuncting a little bit here just to pay the bills. I was like, "Hey, you guys will
Right,
pay me, and give me free parking downtown GR? Sweet, I can walk to clients and
right.
whatever," and I started hanging out with a lot of attorneys at that point. I started learning the legalese, just kinda how to work on stuff. I was able to do this thing. I created a study. It was called brand indexing. It was an algorithmic expression that defines how consumers interpret brands, and it gives you a mathematical probability that somebody's going to consume your product or do business with you based off top of mind awareness, guided awareness, target adaptation, brand personality, and market share. So there were a lot of different things I was working on at the time that people were interested in, where I was able to go and create these consulting dashboards. So then you're able to bill a little bit more money when
Yeah,
you have some
yeah,
proprietary.
right,
That work in the patent space and working
yeah,
with IP,
yeah.
right? That's the only asset you have to your name. I couldn't feed my cat, but I was able to bill people an arm and a leg. And you scale that up, you scale it up. I sold that company. They tried to fire me at one point. I brought on some partners, and because I was too young and inexperienced, and you're going to a Coca-Cola or a Lockheed Martin or a Boeing, and you're trying to convince them that you can predict what consumers are going to do. They might listen to you, but if you don't have a Stanford professor backing you or whatever it might
Yeah.
be, these academics have never done the thing. They just talk about it a lot. They're like, I don't know, this guy's kind of, maybe we'll see. They always kept saying like, "We'll see, we'll see." And
So
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 I
you
pushed
so you
way
brought
too hard for a couple things, and they tried to fire me. Yeah,
hold on, so
it's crazy.
you started the company because this seems like the guy like a Steve Jobs situation where you started the company, you brought on others to help you with the company, yet they
Yeah.
tried to, like, fire you?
Mhm. Yeah, so, I mean, when you take other people's money, you gotta remember they're trying to make money back. No one's just gonna
That's
give
true.
you a handout.
That's
And
true.
growing up the way that I did, simple life in the woods of Twin Lake, right off River Road, it's like I didn't know how money works. I didn't
Right,
understand it. I remember my stepdad sat me down one time when I was telling him, "Oh, I'm gonna start this business or I'm gonna go buy something, buy a piece of real estate." And he's like, "Can you balance this checkbook?" And I was like, "What's that? How do you do that?" And he's like, "Well, if you can figure out these things." He's like, "No, you're not mature enough. You're not ready for it." And I didn't listen. So then I started taking on all these investors and taking all this money from all these people. They were great people. I'm still friends with most of them too. And hindsight, always connecting the dots, looking backwards. It's always 2020, right? They were right. I was wrong.
Right.
But I wanted to do some acquisitions at that point, and they're like, "No, dude, we're a consulting company. Like, we can give you money to be a consultant, not to go out and buy some manufactured homes that you're going to rent for $1 a square foot." I was like, "Yeah, but that's where the money's at." It's the brand couldn't survive without me out in the field doing the consulting, but I was
Right.
so focused on doing other things to diversify that I was ignoring the core competency that made revenue. So we
Right.
started taking slight losses, not big losses, but slight losses. And I didn't have enough money to stand on my own 2 feet where I could pay people back or, buy anybody out. So they're
Right.
like, "Yeah, man, so we're gonna fire you, but we want you to stay on the board, and then we're gonna hire someone to do the job that you used to do, and you have to advise that person."